Alright, I'm going to be demonstrating how I did my, I can do that. I took this image by Pandagunda. I started with a basic template with an 8 by 10 inches. And I started off by putting on a gradient. Took this picture off the web. I ended up not using this one of this man just because I really didn't like the quality. But that is how I would have just kind of like super simple, just kind of like started masking it off a little bit and just kind of seeing how things would fit in it. Then I went and I looked up a bunch of different image beforehand for these like 3D chromatic like shapes that you would be able to find in the original image. So I just took that, I started masking them, editing them with the saturation so they were the right color temperature and low saturation. I started putting those into the new image, and with the color gradient I ended up taking it and I made it so that it was a little bit more grainy, just so it had that more background effect. Yeah, I just kind of started to placing things on the page, masking out things where I thought it would be the best visually, trying to use as many rules as possible, just kind of like having a lot more going on the right side of the image, like the original image. I knew that like the little squiggle shapes that I use weren't gonna give the exact like cutthroat kind of more scary looking effects because of the curvature of them, but I was just gonna, there's only so much I can do. I wasn't really sure how to make those kind of shapes, so I just kind of went with it. I started masking out some of his face just so it would kind of match with the original image a little bit, and kind of taking off kind of where I thought would be the most visually impactful. I kind of started to make sure I just started organizing things out. And this part was probably the hardest to figure out because I genuinely had absolutely no idea what to do. And by the looks of it, there was just squiggly lines on squiggly lines. So I just kind of went with it. I just started making lines, and then I realized there's absolutely no way I'm going to do this for the whole thing. So I took one of my layers, and then I just copied it using Command J, and I started to mess with the color overlays. I really wanted to add like an outside glow, mainly onto like kind of the outside of his face, just to kind of apply that to kind of what we had been learning, and just kind of like messing with those color overlays and those outer shadows, along with the just kind of add on things that just see if I can make it a little bit more visually appealing with what I was working with. I took his face into camera raw just to make sure I kind of got the right kind of tone of how his face looked, because it was a lot darker, except it was a little bit more matte. I was doing my best to kind of achieve that look right here in the camera raw, just by messing with like the grain and noise of his face. I honestly, I think I could have done a little bit better in terms of ensuring it was a little more matted looking in texture. But yeah, so that's just kind of like where I got from that. And then I realized once I had kind of finished the assignment, I really wanted to go back and add a little bit more darkness to the right hand side of the image, because I didn't really feel like I did enough squiggly lines, because the original image just kind of appeared a lot more just kind of darker on the right hand side. It just carried a lot more weight, and I wanted to try to achieve that. So I took a kind of like a uniquely shaped, organic shaped brush, and I wanted to like get a Gaussian blur that might best kind of like fit how like the tone and like the feeling of the image, which is very like ominous and just very abstract. I try to mess with like the different colors of the squiggly lines. I even try to look up like silly string, like something that already had that texture, so I could edit it, maybe add a color overlay glow, which is kind of what I did to it earlier. And I think adding those little effects kind of made all the difference. So I'm okay with how that turned out. So this is kind of like when I think I started to like mess with the different overlays, just to see if I could try to get that effect to the best of my abilities. But yeah, I just kind of continued messing with the color, the camera raw, and the placement of certain things on the page, so that things turned out a little bit more different. and some of the squiggly lines that I used were white, most of it was black, but I didn't really know how to achieve like a very sharp kind of look with those squiggly lines, which is kind of why I feel like it's not nearly as close to the original images, just because of that kind of effect that I try to get alone. Because like with the mouse, the track mouse, it was very difficult to like get straight lines cut to like a 90-degree angle, and everything I did was more curved. So I think I struggled with that quite a bit. But I would try to maybe use the pen tool, going with the pen tool to just kind of ensure you get those sharp lines, and just continue to utilize the color overlays and the different glowing features to kind of add on to the effect of the original image, and then utilizing the camera raw to give it the full effect, making sure that you copy and paste all those layers together, put them in a folder or a group just to make sure that things don't get confusing would be the best way to go about it. And then just making sure it's all put together and seeing how it compares to the original image. You should get something very close to the original effect with the different chromatic shapes, the lines, the textures, and the colors. This is essentially what my final product looked like, saving it and downloading it as a PDF and a PSD file. And here is a picture coming up of the my version and the original. And I think it turned out pretty good. Thank you.